In those 13 years working with law enforcement here in this country and also overseas. I did 3 years in Guatemala City and 2 years in Monterrey, Mexico. And I can tell you the drug war is not working any better in Latin America than it's working right here. LEAP is a nonprofit organization comprised primarily of former law enforcement officials, prosecutors, judges, attorneys, elected officials, who have all come to believe that our current approach to the drug war, this prohibition-centric model, has just completely failed. Hasn't made anything better, hasn't made anybody safer, hasn't made anybody less sick, and that we need to completely do away with that and move toward a system of regulated legalization. But for today, I'm going to pretty much just stick on marijuana because that's the focus here. So, 13 years with DEA. In the course of those 13 years, I really came to see that the drug war is just a complete failure. So I'm going to talk about some of the reasons that it's a failure and some of the things that are moving positively in the direction in terms of efforts to reform our current drug laws. When we think about what we wanted to accomplish with the war on drugs, right? It's easy to say, okay, these are the few things that would say this is a successful war, this is a war worth fighting. Some of those things would be fewer people dying of overdoses, fewer people suffering from addiction, less violence in our streets, and drugs being less available to kids. And by none of those metrics has this war been the least bit successful. With regard to the kids, the government's own survey that just came out last year, it's called the Monitoring the Future Survey, where they ask high school kids about drug use and drug availability in their schools. 85% of kids say that marijuana is readily available in their high school, and 35% say cocaine is readily available. So clearly what we're doing, trying to keep drugs out of this country, we can't even keep them out of our high schools and middle schools. Okay, so all those things really point to absolute failure. But it's not just failure, it's not just that the strategy hasn't worked. The strategy has really made things an awful lot worse in a lot of ways. The one way that's really important to me, because I've been in a lot of prisons, not as an inmate, but I've visited a lot of prisons and talked to people, is how many people we incarcerate in this country. And I think that's just a lot of people in this country live their lives and never know anyone who does jail time. But the fact is that we arrest about 1 million marijuana users a year. We have the world's highest incarceration rates. We have 5% of the world's population, and we have 25% of the world's prisoners. And most of that is because of the drug war. So clearly, in the land of the free, we're doing something wrong. There are about 13 million people that use illegal drugs right now, and there are about 40 million people that have used illegal drugs. Under this current drug war strategy, right, if we're going to arrest people that use drugs, we're talking about putting 40 million people in prison. That's completely unsustainable. We have about 2.5 million right now, and it's already grown into this incredible complex, this prison industrial complex, where we can't get out of it. But we keep incarcerating more and more people, and we have laws on the books that would incarcerate a huge percentage of our population. We just have to stop it. It's not working. The other negative consequence of the drug war that I think is really important, and I know we're going to have somebody speak a little bit later who went through this, is that it's very difficult for someone who's addicted to hard illegal drugs to get treatment. I was talking to a Florida Circuit Court judge over the summer, and he was telling me that in his circuit, there's one treatment facility where he can send nonviolent first-time drug addicts. And it has a 41-bed, 9-month-long waiting list. And the reason that's the case is that we spend about 60% of our drug war budget trying to keep drugs from coming into the country and locking up people who are using drugs. If we took half of the money that we spend right now and put it into treatment, we would have a treatment bed for everybody right now who's an addict. It's an absolutely inhumane policy. The third, and this is something that's been in the news a lot lately, is how much violence the drug war causes. We've taken a multi-billion-dollar industry and turned it completely over to the hands of violent criminal organizations. And of course, my last 2 years with DEA, from 2008 to 2010, I was in northern Mexico, and as everybody knows, the situation there has gotten incredibly dangerous and incredibly unstable, to the point that it's really threatening Mexico's civil institutions, and the country is, in our government's own words, at risk of collapse because of the power and corrupting influence that the cartels have in northern Mexico. We have to stop it. And the same thing happened in Prohibition. It was alcohol prohibition that gave us Al Capone. It was alcohol prohibition that gave us Bugsy Siegel. And a secret, a lot of people aren't aware of this, it was alcohol prohibition that gave us the Mexican Gulf Cartel. The Gulf Cartel, one of the most powerful and dangerous criminal organizations in the world, got its start running liquor from Mexico into Texas during Prohibition. It's the same model that we had under Prohibition. It didn't work then, and it's not working now. The fifth is, and this is something that people up in Congress are pretty concerned about right now, is that the drug war is a tremendous, tremendous waste of resources. The federal drug war budget is about $80 billion. Altogether, about half what we spend on law enforcement in this country is to fight the drug war. It's a huge waste of resources. Last year, and I would encourage anybody to read this study. Last year, a Harvard University economics professor by the name of Jeffrey Myron published a tremendous study about the economic consequences of the drug war. And he found that by legalizing drugs, regulating the way we regulate alcohol and tobacco, it would generate $88 billion a year in cost savings, what we're not spending keeping people locked up, and tax revenue. So anybody who's concerned about the financial mess that we're in right now should look at the war on drugs, look at the money that we're wasting on the war on drugs as a way to solve that. One thing that's really important to me, I came from a law enforcement family. My dad was a police chief. I was with DEA. My brother's a homicide detective. Is how terrible the drug war has been for law enforcement in this country. And that's why LEAP has 50,000 members and we continue to grow every day. Because every day, more cops on the street come to the realization that, hey, this just ain't working. In 1970, in the years before we started this drug war, the murder clearance rate, the percentage of murders that were solved and ended a conviction and somebody going to jail was about 90%. It was almost 90%. Today it's about 60%. And that's a direct result of what the drug war has done to law enforcement. And that's in two ways. First, it's resources. We've taken money that should be spent investigating violent crimes, prosecuting people who are guilty of violent crimes, and focusing it on drug offenders. And the second way is that drug law enforcement has completely eroded confidence in law enforcement. It's completely flipped the idea that police are on the streets to protect citizens and turned the average person, or almost the average person, right, 40 million Americans, into the enemy. I have our executive director, Neil Franklin, was with the Maryland State Police for 30 years. And he tells the story of when he got on the job, when he started 30 years ago, he would drive through a bad neighborhood in Baltimore, and kids would come out of the buildings to rush up to the police car because they wanted to talk to him, wanted to see his gun, wanted to look at the cool cop equipment. Now, you get in a police car in Baltimore and drive through a bad area, and everybody scatters back into their buildings. Because everybody's afraid of the police, and they're afraid of the police because of what the drug war has done and how it's changed the culture of policing in this country. So that's all the bad news, and it is bad news. It's very bad news. But there's a lot of good news, and events like this are part of that good news. One aspect of that is the progress that's been made in medical marijuana. There are 15 states now that have medical marijuana laws on the books. There are about a dozen more that are considering it. There are a number of states that have marijuana decriminalization laws or referenda up for consideration in 2012, and at least some of those are certainly going to pass. There are two bills, marijuana decriminalization bills, floating around in Congress right now. I would encourage anybody who cares about this issue to contact their legislators and tell them we want that bill out of committee and we want it to be put to a floor vote. And public perception about this issue has changed dramatically in the last 20 years. Right now, a majority of Americans, about 60% in the last Gallup poll, are in favor of decriminalizing marijuana. Because nobody wants their teenage son or their teenage daughter who makes a stupid mistake and smokes a joint one day to lose their eligibility for federal financial aid, to have to put that on every single job application they file for the rest of their life, and to have that stigma that's attached to marijuana users in this country for no good reason. So what can we do about it? Well, this is certainly part of what we can do about it. And as Becky mentioned, there's going to be a rally here on 4/20 that is going to generate more attention, going to have more people here, going to have more media here. And I would encourage everybody here, everybody just walking by listening, if you care about this issue, talk to as many of your friends as you can, talk to your family, and come back here on 4/20. It's a real day of solidarity for people who care about this issue. And I really believe that because of how the momentum is changing, because more and more people in law enforcement and outside of law enforcement are coming to an understanding of how destructive and how just counterproductive our drug laws are and the way that we enforce them are, I really think that this is the best time in history. It's the best time in my life, and it's probably the best time since the first Marijuana Tax Act back almost 100 years ago. I think we have a better chance today of seeing marijuana prohibition end in our lifetimes than we've ever had before. It's just a matter of continuing to work at it, continuing to talk to people, continuing to talk to your legislature, partnering with groups like Overthrow the Government, or Overgrow the Government. Not overthrow, we'll get the police back. Overgrow the Government and LEAP, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, and educating yourself about the issue. So that's all I had. Thank you very much, Becky, for the invitation. Anybody else? Oh, sorry. I should have timed that around the sandwich. I apologize.
That was halfway through the hot dog.
Thank you so much, Sean, for coming out today. It's real important that our law enforcement get involved. We enjoy talking to them and seeing what their opinion is on what they have to do with their jobs. I know just recently my boyfriend and I were up at a place in North Carolina called Kear Lake. And it was about 10 o'clock at night. There was nobody anywhere. We were out on a boat ramp. And we decided to sit there and burn one. And lo and behold, here comes the flashlight out of the woods. He had smelled marijuana. Oh God. And that seems to be the biggest thing. A lot of people don't like the way it smells. Well, I don't care the way pipe tobacco smells, so, but people can still smoke pipe tobacco. And I actually enjoy the smell of marijuana, and so do a lot of other people. That's personal preference. But the ranger came down on the dock on us, and we were sitting down there, and of course the joint was gone by the time he got there. So there was no evidence. And consumption is not against the law. Possession is against the law. So you can talk to an officer and tell them you consume cannabis all day long. You just can't possess it. I think that's insane. That's probably why when we get drug tested at work, we don't get arrested the minute that we test positive for marijuana. We just lose our job. And that's another thing with the state this country is in. How many people can afford to lose their jobs these days? A lot of people recreationally use marijuana. It's becoming a very social scene issue across this country. We have 17 states now that are legal, including Washington, D.C., which has a medical marijuana program here. I actually, last month, went to Statesville, North Carolina, to Congressman McHenry's Republican meeting that he had in his county, and asked him about the D.C. medical marijuana program. He works here as a congressman and said he didn't know anything about it. So I'm wondering how many people that live in Washington, D.C. do not understand that we have medical marijuana right here in the state capitol. If a politician had a serious enough problem, they could go right on down and get them a medical marijuana card. But yet us American citizens are forbidden in the illegal states. So I guess what we'll do now, since there's not a whole lot of people here, I don't see Curtis, is I've got a veteran here from California and around the country. When I met him, he was in California in the hospital. Oh, Curtis is here. You'd be a good one to bring up next. In the last couple months, I kind of got quiet in the movement. Our bill in North Carolina died, and I was a little upset about that, so I decided to take a break, and during that break, I just managed to run across this veteran from P.O. Box 1 Fremont that was addicted to cocaine. This man had gone out and spent $500,000 last year trying to self-medicate his PTSD. So when I found that out, and what I do for my organization, I went and had dinner with him and sat him down and said, I'd like you to try something. Let's see if we can get you off that cocaine. And he listened. So for the last couple months, Mr. Curtis Wayne Hooks Jr. has used cannabis extract and successfully stopped using cocaine. So, there's another aspect of this that we're not looking at in treatment. What if this God-given plant had the ability to help people get off of harder drugs? This is something that needs to be looked into and explored, and I believe that in Canada, in some of the treatment centers, they're actually doing that. But in the United States, the propaganda is alive and well. We have many people that don't understand what cannabis is doing out there in the world and what we're learning about it. And this is a movement that's happening through the people, because our government is really not trying to help us. So I'm going to bring up Curtis Wayne Hooks Jr. and let him talk to you a little bit about what he's been through the last couple months with me, because I've had to been hard on him a couple times to keep him straight, but we've successfully pulled him off of 17 medications and cocaine. Here's Curtis Wayne Hooks Jr.
Thank you, dear. Thank you folks for being here. It's been a rough road. And I wasn't just a drug addict, I was alcoholic. And a speed demon. I own a few Corvettes. I've had more tickets than most people got money in their pocket. And luckily I still got a driver's license. But I'd like to thank Rebecca for saving my life. All she did, she's an angel. A beautiful angel. And it's good to be here. And Me.
Back on the orange ball dot.
And by the way, I like to smoke pipes, and she does like my pipe tobacco, but sometimes I put something else in there besides tobacco, once in a while. She likes the smell of that. Me too. I hope all you folks are doing good today, and I'd like to thank all the veterans in the United States and across the country that saved our lives and keep this country so great, and all the police officers and public servants that are here looking after this beautiful place, because I was stationed at Andrews Air Force Base. I did send Obama a letter about 3 years ago. I gave him a documentary of my flight records and a lot of my military stuff. He did send me a letter back, but he didn't say a damn thing about that leather coat I want, because I earned it. I spent 1,200 hours in a 1943 model airplane. I want my damn leather coat. I know he's got an extra one somewhere. He needs to do a better job. We need to legalize marijuana. We don't need people on the damn borders. Hell, they got a big ocean. They can run around the damn border. Shit, they can fly a boat in here. Them guys got boats with motors on them and airplane wings. They got more money than we got. We need to quit wasting all that money. We need to put it in something in veterans' benefits. Taking care of some of these veterans that lost limbs in the wars. Prosthetics has come a long ways. It needs to come a lot further.
Tell them about your bird, Curtis.
And by the way, it works. Miracle marijuana, it works on the outside. Like I said, I'm a speed nut. I run a motorcycle through the woods, 105 miles an hour, and walked away. You think of divine intervention, it rung my bell, but I tell you what, it knocked some damn sense into me, because I would have never been off of drugs if it hadn't been for that little intervention with a motorcycle and 6 deer standing in the way. I couldn't get across the road, so I made my own. And it didn't work too well. But when you're out 47 minutes and you can walk out of the woods, Evel Knievel didn't do it 161 times. Somebody came to get him. I walked out. I went to the hospital 21 days later. But I'm still walking. Still got to have a couple operations, but everything's going to work.
Tell them about what happened with your leg when they put it on.
Yeah, and I burnt my leg. Motorcycle ran on top of me 47 minutes. I got a good Harley Davidson. It was so good, I decided I'd spend $6,000 on making it run faster and looks better. I don't know why. I won't be driving it that fast, though. But anyhow, after 47 minutes of being burnt, my leg was bad for about 2 months when I met this angel over here, Rebecca Forbes. And she started using extracts on me in 3 days. It was gone. First day, I had no pain at all. My leg was totally red from my ankle to my knee. And it didn't feel too good. But you know what? It worked. And I was not a believer until that. I tell you what, I'm her damn test patient. She says shove it, use it, smoke it, swallow it. Guess what? I'm her guinea pig.
How many PTSD medications?
Yeah, and I got off a lot of PTSD medication. And I won't just take them what I was prescribed. I was taking about double that. It's like my shrink told my lawyer one time. He said the kid don't live to be on the edge of the earth. He lives for the moment. Because he don't know when the next one's going to end. And I did. And I really wasn't too concerned about it. Thought I was having a good time. But I finally found out what living is. I wouldn't be here. I called my ex-wife last night and I told her, I said, the Huddle House where I took you to the first dinner up here, we met in Washington, D.C. She was working with J. Edgar Hoover in the FBI. I said, the Huddle House has been bulldozed. After 38 years, a lot of stuff has changed up here. Thank you folks for being here and support the movement.